Nearly 3 weeks after the sudden disappearance of a beloved elderly woman, authorities are sorting through tens of thousands of tips and a shocking DNA discovery that doesn't match any known family member. Could this unidentified sample be the key to solving one of the most baffling missing persons cases in recent memory? Despite intense scrutiny and a wide-ranging investigation, multiple individuals have been detained and cleared. Still, elusive answers and mysterious leads remain. What secrets lie behind sealed homes, surveillance footage, and a relentless search for a woman who vanished without a trace in her own neighborhood? In the ongoing investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, law enforcement briefly turned its attention to a man named Luke Daly after executing search warrants connected to the case. Daly, a 37-year-old who lives just a few miles from Nancy's home, was detained during a traffic stop and later questioned at his residence. Despite the seriousness of the situation, neither Daly nor his 77-year-old mother, who also lives in the home, was arrested. His swift questioning and release only added to the growing uncertainty surrounding individuals who may have had some connection to Nancy. Following the search of his home, the Pima County Sheriff's Office identified Daly as a person of interest, a designation that quickly captured public attention. However, Sheriff Chris Nanos clarified that this did not make Daly an official suspect. Authorities obtained court-approved warrants to collect potential evidence from a residence, but Daly was allowed to leave after cooperating with investigators. The move highlighted the careful balance between pursuing leads and protecting the rights of individuals not formally accused of wrongdoing. Shortly after the searches conducted on February 13, 2026, Daly's attorney issued a formal statement asserting that his client had no involvement in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance and no knowledge of her whereabouts. The law firm emphasized that Daly had cooperated fully with investigators and did not possess any information relevant to the case. While intended to ease speculation, the statement also raised further questions about what investigators may have uncovered during the searches. Even after Daly's release, Sheriff Nanos confirmed that the investigation remained active. Processing evidence collected from Daly's home could take time, and forensic analysis, including the potential examination of DNA, might reveal important leads. At that stage, nothing had been publicly confirmed, but officials stressed that every piece of evidence could influence the direction of the investigation. For many local residents closely following the case, the raid brought both hope and concern. The fact that such a significant operation ended without charges or clear answers left some wondering how much authorities truly knew. Meanwhile, investigators continued canvassing nearby businesses and interviewing potential witnesses, determined to follow every possible lead. The law enforcement agencies involved in the case have worked to maintain both their need for operational secrecy and their duty to provide public information throughout the entire investigation. The officials have chosen to disclose information that they can confirm because it does not endanger the ongoing investigation, which has created public speculation, but remains essential for maintaining case integrity. The investigation into Daly brought back attention to both the neighborhoods nearby and Nancy's extended network of friends. No evidence exists that proves a relationship between Daly and Nancy, despite the ongoing examination of his activities. Investigators have pursued 3 lines of investigation, which include assessing relationships and alliances and studying possible reasons that could explain her disappearance during those days. Daly's temporary detention creates an understanding of the difficulties police encounter when they search for missing people who have no eyewitnesses or prime suspects. The investigation team uses search warrants and interviews to build their case of what happened when Nancy went missing. Daly remains under investigation for his connection to the case, which makes his detention a breakthrough for the investigation, which has become increasingly challenging. The authorities are currently pursuing valid leads that come to their attention, which helps them progress with the investigation of Nancy Guthrie's ongoing case. As the probing of physical evidence at various locations moved forward, a startling genetic clue emerged that would redirect the focus of the investigation unexpectedly. A critical breakthrough in the Nancy Guthrie investigation came not from witness statements or surveillance footage, but from a DNA sample discovered inside her home that did not belong to her or any known person connected to her life. This discovery raised immediate questions about who could have left such genetic material behind and suggested the presence of another individual within the residence at the time of her disappearance. The significance of an unknown DNA profile in a missing person case cannot be overstated. It offers a potential lead when other clues have stalled. Initial tests confirmed that the mysterious DNA sample was not a match to Nancy herself, her family members, or close associates. Furthermore, when the sample was checked against Cody's, the FBI's combined DNA index system used to identify known offenders and arrestees, there was no direct match. Given that Cody's only covers roughly 4 to 6% of the general population, many individuals, including those without prior records, would not be present in the system. This reinforced that the investigation was dealing with an individual who might not have triggered law enforcement databases before. With conventional databases turning up empty, investigators turned to an advanced forensic method known as genetic genealogy. This technique compares DNA markers against public and private ancestry databases to identify distant relatives and piece together a family tree, potentially leading to the individual who left the sample. Genetic genealogy has become a groundbreaking tool in recent cold cases, solving mysteries where traditional forensic methods have fallen short. In Nancy's case, it represented a promising new direction for unraveling the unknown. The investigation reached its critical point when researchers found and publicly identified an unknown DNA source. The evidence showed that someone who had permission to enter her house or who lived nearby had to be involved in Nancy's disappearance. The discovery of foreign DNA at the crime scene established evidence that proved that a fight had taken place inside the house. The evidence established a clear direction that investigators could pursue. The sheriff's willingness to disclose this information, uncommon in many ongoing investigations, indicated an increased urgency to involve the public and possibly encourage those with related knowledge to come forward. The DNA evidence did not match any suspects, yet the police considered this evidence to be vital because they released this information. The DNA evidence stood in contrast to earlier leads that had not yielded solid results, shining a spotlight on the power of scientific advancements in criminal investigations. The most important DNA evidence could not help solve the remaining obstacles that persisted after its discovery. The process of genetic genealogy requires multiple weeks to trace ancestral connections between distant relatives while validating their identities. Labs need to implement strict quality control procedures that protect against contamination and enable them to produce correct profiles before delivering their results. The method requires successful execution because it depends on family members of the unidentified donor who must access ancestry databases, which investigators cannot control. The investigation maintained its potential for success because scientists use advanced technology and forensic methods to solve the case. The findings created new inquiries about the environment that existed around Nancy Guthrie. DNA evidence showed an unknown connection to any familiar people who visited Nancy Guthrie. The police extended their investigation beyond potential suspects by examining all possible links to neighbors, acquaintances, and people who had visited before, as well as anyone who might have entered the area without permission. The presence of unknown DNA evidence created additional challenges for the investigation, yet it provided unique information that helped investigators focus on their suspect search. The evidence did not provide an immediate resolution to the case, but became the main element of ongoing investigative activities, which created a new sense of optimism for both law enforcement and the community members. With this breakthrough, the investigative path increasingly depended on the promise of genetic genealogy, a modern tool that has revolutionized suspect identification in complex cases. Genetic genealogy has emerged as one of the most powerful tools in modern criminal investigations, especially in cases where conventional forensic methods hit dead ends. At its core, this technique involves analyzing DNA samples to identify relatives of an unknown individual through shared genetic markers, often by comparing evidence to public genealogy databases like GeneMatch or commercial services, such as 23andMe. This method effectively builds a family tree from distant cousins, narrowing the search for a suspect or person of interest in a way unimaginable just a decade ago. One of the most famous examples illustrating the power of genetic genealogy is the Golden State Slayer case. For decades, investigators struggled with dozens of unsolved assaults and slayings dating back to the 1970s and 1980s. When DNA collected from crime scenes finally yielded no matches in criminal databases, law enforcement turned to genealogy websites. By identifying distant relatives and building a family tree, the search culminated in the arrest of Joseph D'Angelo, a former police officer who had long evaded capture. This landmark case thrust genetic genealogy into the spotlight and paved the way for its widespread use. Similarly, genetic genealogy played a crucial role in more recent cases, including the identification and capture of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, who was linked to a slaying in Maryland through this technique despite having no prior criminal record in the United States database. Cases like these underscore how genetic genealogy can crack cases where traditional DNA databases fall short, especially when suspects lead quiet lives or have no known criminal history. In the Guthrie investigation, law enforcement's decision to pursue genetic genealogy after finding foreign DNA in Nancy's home reflects a strategic move guided by these successes. With no direct match in Cody's, investigators are now attempting to piece together the suspect's ancestry through distant relatives who may have submitted DNA for ancestry or health purposes. This iterative, research-intensive method involves combing through family trees to isolate potential individuals who fit physical descriptions and circumstances. The scientists need to test the sample for its purity, while they must prevent any contamination, and they need to study the genealogical records, which extend across different regional areas and multiple family generations. Orchidam and other private companies work to make these processes quicker because they believe an upcoming breakthrough will occur soon. Experts emphasize that genetic genealogy maintains special value for solving mysterious cases that lack direct evidence because it presents unique challenges. The method uses relatives' DNA together with public records to overcome the limitations of traditional law enforcement databases, which only contain data about a small part of the population. The discovery of unknown DNA at a crime scene that belongs to a non-suspect individual changes the investigation process. Genetic genealogy serves a dual purpose by identifying potential suspects and helping investigators establish chronological events while validating suspect movements and determining possible motivations through other evidence. The system improves all forensic and detective operations by providing police and FBI agents with advanced tools that used to exist only in science fiction. The unidentified DNA in the Guthrie case contains hope that investigators will find a living person who knows what happened to Nancy. The case, which had shown no progress for several weeks, now reaches a point where new evidence from detailed detective analysis meets advanced scientific breakthroughs. The forensic investigation becomes more intense with every new genetic discovery because it brings investigators closer to achieving their goal of solving the case and achieving justice. With genetic genealogy providing a new angle, law enforcement can intensify their pursuit of the anonymous figure who left behind the DNA that might hold the key to what happened that fateful day. Among the most compelling pieces of evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case are the surveillance videos depicting a masked individual armed and standing on the front steps of her home. The images, though limited in number, have been publicly released in an effort to identify the person seen that day. Law enforcement believes this figure could be central to understanding what happened to Nancy, as the presence of a weapon points to a crime of intention rather than chance. The video's shadowy quality only adds to the tension, leaving the public to piece together clues from a silhouette. Despite releasing these images, officials have refrained from sharing other surveillance footage, fueling speculation about what remains unseen. The sheriff has suggested that there could be more than one person involved, indicating the possibility of accomplices or a coordinated effort. This assessment complicates the profile of the suspect, expanding from a lone actor to a potentially larger network or partnership. The idea of more than one individual involved casts a wider net for investigators, while heightening the stakes for anyone watching who might hold crucial information. The suspect appearance, from what little can be discerned, does not suggest someone with extraordinary criminal skills or sophisticated training. Instead, descriptions imply a more ordinary profile, which presents a real-world reminder of how dangerous situations can unfold in seemingly quiet neighborhoods. This helps underscore the sheriff's belief that the crime was targeted. The person or persons responsible knew exactly who they were after. Such a targeted act narrows the scope, but also raises chilling questions about motive and premeditation. The public has responded to the image released with different emotions that include both fear and frustration. Many viewers have expressed hope that this video could ignite new tips or leads, while some people feel anxious about the potential threat that could arise from anyone who might be involved. The community has become more watchful because neighbors have begun monitoring their surroundings while participating in community activities. The police department has investigated every claimed sighting and linked to the masked suspect, which has expanded their investigation into a wider community matter. Law enforcement agencies consider this video footage to be their primary evidence for conducting investigations. Officers and agents examine the videos multiple times to discover aspects that others might fail to see, which include particular walking patterns and unique dress and minor body gestures that can help identify the person. The team conduct a methodical examination of the recorded material to demonstrate the difficulties faced when working with either inadequate or low-quality visual content. The identification of potential suspect depends on each frame, which serves as a crucial component of the investigation process to eliminate innocent individuals from consideration. The footage presents unknown questions about its timing, while additional surveillance from nearby properties may show better footage. Investigators are known to be gathering extensive video evidence not yet made public, suggesting efforts to extend the visual narrative beyond what has been shared. The ongoing examination of security cameras throughout the neighborhood represents a crucial part of the multi-layered investigation. Every angle could reveal details that connect to the mysterious stranger. The sheriff's statements demonstrate his understanding of how releasing those images affects people's mental states. Law enforcement shares the masked figure's footage to create community identification, which will lead to people who know even small information about the case coming forward. The investigators recognize that public involvement functions as the essential element that helps them solve cases in situations where there are no eyewitnesses. While the mystery of the surveillance video continues to grip public attention, another dimension of the investigation involves the geographic and logistical realities of the case, particularly due to its proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border. Nancy Guthrie's home lies less than 2 hours from the Arizona border with Mexico, a fact that inevitably raises questions about the possibility of her being taken across the border. The southern route from Tucson to Nogales, Arizona, is a commonly traveled corridor, easily accessible by vehicle and monitored by numerous cameras at official checkpoints. Despite the ease of crossing, law enforcement officials strongly emphasize that the presence of cameras and surveillance equipment makes unmonitored border crossing quite difficult for anyone attempting to evade detection. Authorities have made it clear there is no indication or evidence suggesting Nancy Guthrie was transported into Mexico. The Pima County Sheriff has repeatedly stated that no signs point to her having crossed the border. Federal agencies, including the FBI, have maintained communication with Mexican authorities from the outset, highlighting the high level of cooperation between agencies on both sides. This binational collaboration underscores a combined effort to track movements and share intelligence that could prove vital. Retired FBI agent Greg Rogers further explained that the Policia Federal maintained close ties to cartel groups active in border regions, including Nogales, Sonora. If Nancy had been taken into cartel-controlled territory, they would likely be aware of the situation, given the cartel's strict control over activities within their domains. Rogers clarified that while he doesn't believe the cartels are involved, their presence means that such a kidnapping would almost certainly not go unnoticed or unreported in their circles. There remains a theoretical possibility that Nancy could have been moved through less obvious parts of the border, such as desert trails or rugged terrain not covered by official checkpoints. However, these routes are treacherous and demanding, making it unlikely that an elderly woman could be forced to endure such a passage without assistance. This raises doubts about whether any kidnapper would risk moving her that way, especially so soon after the abduction, when attention on the case was intense. The logistics of crossing the border under heavy surveillance weigh heavily on investigators as they weigh escape theories. Surveillance echoes along the main corridors, with every vehicle and individual recorded by border cameras, limiting the chance of discreet passage. Law enforcement's reluctance to dismiss possibilities shows they're considering all scenarios, even those that seem less plausible given the circumstances. Reward offers for information have increased substantially, with the FBI and Crime Stoppers each pledging $100,000. This financial incentive aims to embolden witnesses or informants who might know whether Nancy was indeed moved across or near the border. Such public engagement becomes even more critical given the geographical challenges and complexity of cross-border cases. While the border hangs as a looming question mark in the case, it does more than frame a potential escape route. It also situates the investigation within the broader realities of immigration, law enforcement cooperation, and regional control. The close proximity calls for vigilance on all fronts, where local, federal, and international agencies must coordinate in a rare and delicate balance. As new leads continue to pour in, investigators sustain their search with every resource available, aware that the solution to this mystery could emerge from any clue, near or far. In the weeks following Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, investigators have expanded their efforts beyond traditional search methods, turning to the local community for potential clues. Law enforcement officers have been canvassing Tucson area businesses, including gun shops, to determine whether anyone recognizes individuals from a compiled list of names and photographs. This hands-on approach reflected determination to explore every possible lead alongside ongoing forensic analysis. The decision to visit gun shops suggests that investigators are considering whether firearms may have played a role in the crime, or if a suspect could have obtained a weapon locally. Business owners have been shown images and asked whether any of the individuals appear familiar based on customer interactions over the past year. These inquiries are intended not only to identify potential suspects, but also to determine whether any weapon seen in surveillance footage might be connected to recent purchases. Although time-consuming, door-to-door canvassing remains a critical investigative strategy. Local businesses and residents often notice unusual behavior or remember specific interactions that might otherwise go unreported. Even a small detail, such as recognizing a name or face, can help investigators eliminate false leads or generate new ones. Community cooperation in situations like this can significantly impact the direction of an investigation. Public awareness has also led to an overwhelming number of tips. The FBI reported receiving nearly 20,000 submissions since early February, while combined reported with local sheriff's offices has pushed that total closer to 50,000. Processing this volume of information requires careful coordination and reliable systems to assess which leads may be credible. Among thousands of tips, even one accurate piece of information could prove crucial. Investigators have shared surveillance footage and images with businesses and community members to create an identification process. The public outreach program enables common people to become active participants, which raises a probability that someone will remember an important event or suspicious behavior. Most people wait until they see a public photo or video release before they decide to report information. The investigation remains difficult because officials have not confirmed sightings of Nancy or any potential suspect despite extensive search efforts. Community input have provided useful information, but various uncertainties still block their progress. The information stream needs essential content to be analyzed so that investigators can determine which elements provide real leads and which ones are mere conjecture. Police agencies use their presence at local businesses to establish their commitment to investigating every possible lead. The visible presence operates as a source of tension, which makes people more likely to make errors and encourages witnesses to disclose information. Authorities are conducting outreach efforts while they verify gathered data through official databases, which contain license plate reader information and background check records. The investigation process uses both conventional detection methods and contemporary data processing techniques. The ongoing outreach programs demonstrate how complicated the case investigation has become. Investigators work to solve Nancy Guthrie's disappearance through digital analysis and forensic evidence, while depending on community members to provide protection and assistance. Although the investigation is reaching into the neighborhoods and businesses surrounding Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, law enforcement has also publicly addressed and substantially cleared the immediate Guthrie family of suspicion, a key turning point in focusing the search elsewhere. From the earliest days of the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, her family faced intense scrutiny, a common but often painful reality in missing persons cases. Authorities conducted thorough searches of family homes, seized personal belongings such as phones and vehicles, and carefully examined anyone closely connected to Nancy. This process was essential in determining whether those closest to her had any involvement. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has since confirmed that Nancy Guthrie's immediate family, along with their spouses, have been cleared of any connection to her disappearance. According to officials, this conclusion came after investigators pursued every possible lead tied to the family. Sheriff Nanos noted that they had been put through the ringer, underscoring just how detailed and rigorous the internal investigation had been. Even with this official clearance, the process took an emotional toll. Investigators explored personal aspects of the family's lives, sometimes bringing sensitive matters into public view. While these steps were necessary to rule out involvement, they added strain to an already distressing situation. Law enforcement's transparency in publicly clearing the family was intended to ease growing speculation and prevent misplaced suspicion. Authorities established family non-involvement, which enabled them to concentrate their efforts on other investigative possibilities. The investigation involved two main activities, which included tracking leads from unknown DNA evidence and assessing people who were designated as suspects. The investigation team first eliminated close family members from consideration as suspects, which enabled them to investigate all potential external sources that might provide evidence needed to solve the case. Public trust in the family situation has remained intact because the family has maintained full transparency about their current circumstances. The investigators provide information through their official communications, which prevents the spread of false information and keeps the investigation process focused on verified information, while all other details are treated as rumors. Nancy Guthrie's family gained full freedom to support the investigation after their names were officially cleared. Family members become essential partners who help maintain public interest and motivate new witnesses to come forward with details about the investigation. The investigation team continues their work by investigating all people who had contact with Nancy throughout her life, including her friends and associates, and everyone who knew her. The complete investigation method shows that researchers need to go beyond their current social networks to find hidden connections that help solve the case. The family investigation process needed to conduct multiple inquiries because the family had been eliminated as suspects, but the search for Nancy Guthrie required more time to complete its last investigative tasks. As this chapter of the investigation closes, the relentless search presses forward, fueled by extensive community cooperation, newly refined forensic clues, and an unwavering commitment to uncover what happened and bring Nancy home. In a case as complex as Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, technology has become central to the investigation. Law enforcement, led by the FBI, is using advanced tools including forensic DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, drone surveillance, and low-frequency signal detectors to support traditional detective work. These technologies allow investigators to process vast amounts of information and uncover leads that might otherwise go unnoticed. Public involvement has also played a major role. The FBI has received nearly 20,000 tips, while local sheriff's offices report the total has climbed to around 50,000. Managing such a volume of information requires advanced data systems that help analysts identify credible leads and filter out speculation, turning overwhelming input into potential breakthroughs. Investigators have even deployed devices capable of detecting low-frequency radio signals, such as those emitted by medical implants like pacemakers. Though limited in range, these tools can be useful in confined or remote areas where someone may be incapacitated or concealed. Partnerships with major tech companies, including Apple and Meta, have created new investigative methods that extend the organization's research capabilities. Through their support of digital footprint analysis and surveillance footage assessment, the organizations provide investigators access to artificial intelligence and data visualization tools, which improve their investigation efficiency and investigation capabilities. Public appeals, which the FBI and Crime Stoppers support through their reward offers, keep encouraging people to share any information they possess. The authorities maintain a cautious approach to information release because they need to safeguard case integrity. The search for Nancy Guthrie involves hundreds of agents and specialists who use technology, expert knowledge, and community support to conduct their investigation. As Nancy Guthrie's disappearance approaches the 3-week mark, the case remains shrouded in uncertainty, with investigators pursuing both emerging technology and crucial community tips. Breakthroughs in DNA testing and genetic genealogy are offering renewed optimism that answers may finally be within reach. To continue following this evolving investigation, watch the next video shown on the screen for more updates. And don't forget to like and subscribe to stay informed. Your support helps keep attention on cases that matter.